Thank you very much. All right, and I've started the recording. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, everybody. Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dirk Stolz. I've been working on getting IRIS working for RATA. IRIS stands for Integrated RATA Information System. The main two objectives that we had with developing IRIS was firstly to make our reporting to the department as easy and simple as possible. The reality is, if everything is computerized and captured in a computer, then the computer can actually give us the answers to what we've done, and we can then just present that to the department. So that side of it is very important for head office itself, and also for the project managers. Program managers, sorry. And forgive me if I get terminology wrong. Please stop me and tell me so I get it right. I've never worked in your environments, so I'm still learning. So please don't feel afraid to stop me if I'm saying something wrong or using a terminology that doesn't make sense. Please, please, please feel free to stop me. Okay. Now, what I was busy saying about that is that on the one hand, this is quite important for us. However, it makes no sense to just do everything duplicated, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so our objective was to create IRIS as a system that will then be something that you guys can use to make your own workload easier, more manageable, and at the end of the day, then give you something that is really helping you do your jobs. So this is, as far as I know, for all of you, the first time you'll be seeing an integrated system using basically what they call CRM, Customer Resource Management principles. However, your work is much more advanced than most CRMs. Okay, you need information about a lot of things that is not required by somebody who just has some customers that they're trying to sell products to. So we can't use normal CRM tools. A CRM tool is merely a start for a company like RATA or organization like RATA. It's definitely not the answer. Just simply because you've got so many things that you have to capture and keep information about that is not normally required. So this screen that you see in front of you right now, I'm going to keep it at the size it's at the moment, okay? I'll scroll in, I'll zoom into specific areas as we go. For a start, you'll see that there's two basic blocks that's important. This block here, case file detail, is the one, and people is the other one. And they are linked with these two arrows that kind of form an ellipse of sorts. All right, forget about the ellipse. This right here is critical to making IRIS really useful for you, okay? The case file detail shows all the information about your case file. You'll see there's a lot of links out of the case file detail screen. The other screen that I was talking about is the people screen. That links to the people detail, and from that there's also a heck of a lot of links out to different parts that we keep. Why do we do it like this? The most important thing is case files can have one or more people on them. A person can also be linked to one or more case files. And we don't want to recapture every person's information every time that that person is on a different case file. So this allows us to have one person be one of the interested parties or one of the people that's of import on more than one case file. And with that as the split, what we've done is we've taken everything that pertains to people, and they are linked to this side of the screen here. All right, so everything that has to do with people is on this side. And I've got it a bit too big. All right. right, let's get it to a size that's going to work. I think that's going to be the best size. All right. So this is everything to do with people. Okay. And we've
message. To skip this message.
Okay, somebody's is not muted. That should be muted. Can you just check if you're muted, everybody, please? Okay. We've got, for example, linked out of people. We've got things like contact numbers, addresses for children. We've got child school details. You know, all the things with what grade is the child in, how's he doing in school, etc., etc. Then there's enough. Some of the fields you'll see has got FC in it. This pertains to the fact that it's a foster care application need that we identified, and that's why we've got this. So deeper background details is a field that comes out of the people detail. Criminal history of a person, their religion, education detail, further education detail, their medical details. As you can see, there's a heck of a lot. And I'm not going to expect any one of you to remember any of this. When it comes to the case files, you'll see that I've also taken a lot of things and identified a lot of things that has to do specifically with a case file. And even though they mixed and matched here just to fit them nicely on the screen, the most logical way of looking at it is we've got our screenings, intakes, assessments, linking directly to the case file. And just about every case file will have those. And then we've got things like court references for any court visits, any legal things that we need to do for a case file, other than foster care, which has got its own set of foster care or court orders. Foster care then is also a separate area linking from the case file. Process notes. Process notes is really important because this is where you keep track of what's happening with your case file. So you will, and I'll show you that when we get to that. All right, and then the financial things that you see in the case file fin detail, that actually is a whole area for doing budgets. If you've ever done a foster care application, you know that the budget of the family is important. Same thing with case file housing detail here. We need to know how many bedrooms, bathrooms, etc. is in there. The other one that I've not touched on yet is the reporter detail down here. That norm is just the other one. When you start a new case file, in the whole process, you'll also capture information about the reporters. So I'm not telling you anything that you don't know about how the job works, and I don't expect you to remember any of the things here. I'm giving you this as background so that you have an idea when we start looking at specific areas, what those are and how they link. And I'll make sure that every single one of you get this image. Or a better one, if I can think of a better way of producing this, so that you can in future easily find the right area in Iris to put information in for a specific thing or whatever. Okay, so that you'll be able to navigate inside of Iris in a logical way. So that's the objective of that. Okay, so how does it actually work? It's the question everybody wants to know. And what do I need to know? What do I need to do? All right, I'm going to stop for a moment and just step back from the system itself and just talk about how a case file comes into existence. There's apparently inside of Rata at this point in time, there's different ways of doing intakes. Okay, totally understood, totally understandable, because not all the branches are working on exactly the same methods, the same forms, etc., etc., etc. Okay, that is something that quite understandable in a paper environment and so on. Unfortunately, when it comes to Iris, we'll have to follow a specific method so as to make it easy for everybody. And what we've done in trying to figure out what is the best method of doing it, there's a document that the department itself provided us. And that document actually tells us what they expect of us, of every single one of you, what to do, what is your job, and how do they want you to report what you've done back to the department. And their methodology leans heavily on the fact that you start with a screening and screening register. Okay, so that's this part here, screening and screening detail. Then at screening, it's possible to resolve an issue. If you do resolve the issue, you don't have anything else that happens. You mark it as resolved at screening, and that's that. If the problem, the issue, whatever gets reported at screening is not resolved, we start a case file. Now, the case file, interestingly enough, has very little information. I'll show you that in a minute, because we've split out all the different things that it can or cannot do, cannot have, and so on, and the logical ways of how to manage things in a computer system. So the very next thing would then be an intake, okay, where we have our intake detail. We put the assessment people that we're going to assess as part of the intake, and we'll put some details to them in. Sorry, I've just got a cough. It's this time of year, isn't it? Okay, and then the next logical step is the assessment itself. Okay, where you go into the assessment detail, you do your consultings, you do all your engagements and report them, and then pull up your assessment information plan, intervention plans, and each of those, of course, then has details that you figure out and work out. Okay, I'll stop right here just for a moment and say, this is what I want to focus on today, all right, is to show you just this basic start of how to do the whole process of doing an intake and creating a new case file, okay? After today, everybody's going to get access to the complete system. So I'll start putting out videos of how to do the other things as well. But this is the starting thing and the starting blocks that you're in now to be able to use Iris. Okay, so, and I don't think anything I've said now is really new to you, in the sense that screening is literally just, is this person that's standing in front of me, do they require our services, or do we refer them to somebody else? For example, do we refer them to SASA or to the police, or do we refer them to other service providers because they come from other areas, and we just have to make sure they work with the people in their area? All of that happens at screening. So I think it's time to show you what Iris actually looks like. And to be able to do that, I've just got to find the right screen between the 100,000 that I've got open and show you this is it. Okay, so what I'm going to do just for a moment is I'm going to log out. Everybody's going to get logins, okay? Your login is going to be your username, which is actually your email address, and you're going to get a password. Don't worry too much about how that's going to happen. Within the next day or so, we'll sort that all out, okay? So you'll then just put that in, and you'll have the option to put remember me, and then you don't have to remember that password. And I definitely recommend using password managers to be able to keep track of your password, because your password's not going to be password 1 ABC or whatever, okay? That's not going to work. Right, so this is 2 case files that I've just created, dummy case files, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to create a new one, but we're going to do the right way. We're going to start with the screening. So there's a button up here that you can do screenings on. Again, you can see the screenings that already exists, and we can add a new screening. So just hit this button for new screening, and there's the information. Now you can see there's not, the screen is pretty clean. And the reason for that is that we've split places, different areas of information, and made it so that you can easily scroll, because you can also use this on a mobile device, and then you don't want to sit there, you know, the flicking up, that gets very frustrating. So we split it. Personal details is the one, is the person screened, and there you have different ways that you can tick them off: caregiver, primary client, and so on. And then there's this last area where you say this is a new or existing case and what's the screening action we're going to take. If it's a new case, click it as a new case. Your screening action is what I was talking about earlier. Okay, this is where you'd say this is going to be referred externally to health. And the terminology here comes directly from the department. Okay, so we'll tick this, and then we have a note block where we can actually explain why we've chosen that one or whatever. Okay, so you can then choose your screening action. If we refer to other service provider, we can put it in. Details if referred, you can also use this, like I said, for a note block where you can just put some information. I referred this person to whoever for whatever reason. Okay. And then the last two things here we'll get to in a moment, but you can say, importantly, resolve that screening if you've chosen, for example, I'm referring them to the health department. Okay. We can't help them. Which resolved the screening, and that's it. All right. So that's the screening. I've not looked at the top screens here at the top of it. Part of the reason is I want to still automate this to some degree. But the screening date, you just check the select the date from a date clicker there. So it's simple enough. The screening employee, this is what I want to automate. I want to use your name as it is up there and find that name and put it in here. But at this point in time, we don't have that ability. So that's something I'm going to try and fix as soon as I can now. The screening office, there's all our offices, okay? And I know I'm putting in a lot of garbage at the moment, but that doesn't matter. We didn't put in the personal details, but you can see it's quite easy. And I'll put my information in, okay? And then ID number or date of birth. So one thing that we don't need, that we still need for that. And is a person screened a primary client, service provider? Sometimes it can be a service provider and a reporter, or it can be a primary client and the reporter. These fields are for your use, and we'll report these things back to the department. Okay. So, but that's neither here nor there. Okay. And then when this is all done, and if you've not said on this bottom bit, if you've not said resolved at screening, it will, and you press save, it will create a case file for you. And it gives you this message that you see up here, creating case file because you said it's not resolved at screening. So it's just giving you information as to say, yeah, you're creating a case file because you didn't say not resolved at screening. The case file it doesn't even have different parts, okay? The case file in and of itself, this screen is very simple and straightforward, okay? It's just got the primary client name, the office that we worked with, and it can be a different office. Again, I want to automate from the previous screen. Open by, again, I want to populate this automatically, all right? Case status, you can choose the one that is applicable at this point, okay? So probably you'll just say it's opened as a case status. The DSD file number, obviously you know what that's all about. The case file number, this is a field that you can use to put the same case file number that you have on your brown paper file. You put that number in here, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, we usually don't have the DSD file number. Would that be a problem if we don't fill in that space?
No, it's not. A really important question. Thanks for asking it at this stage. Can you see that there's a case file number? There's a little red star there. Okay, that means the case file number is a field I want and need you to put in. And if I say that, look at this screen. There's literally just about no other red dot or red star. Okay, and everything that's got a red star means I need information in this field. Okay. Because sometimes when you guys have a heavy workload, you'll be creating a case file and then stepping on with something else because it was just a phone call that you had and you have to do some stuff still on this. You have to do the rest of it. If I force you to fill in all the fields on this, then you can't take another phone call as easily. Okay, so trying to make the way you work and the way Iris work together better has meant that I've limited the number of instances where I force you to put information into the system before I allow you to save. So if you just put an X in here, I'm not checking what you put in there, okay? But you've now put a case file number in there. You can now hit save, okay? And it will actually save that case file, okay? And now if we go back to our case files, there's our new one, okay? And the reason I know it's the new one is it doesn't have an internal or easy name yet, okay? This is a field that I really want to show you what it is, okay? At a case, when you open a case file, you've got a choice right at the top to put an easy or internal name. You don't have to put it yet, okay? And you can edit it at any time that you want. This is the way I expect you to use this field, and what I would like you to do is when you refer to a file, you don't, I'm sure, none of you refer to file X15Y58 or whatever its number is on the paper file. You refer to it as the Hutton file or the Hutton foster care application or something along those lines, okay? You've got a name for it that kind of tells a little bit of the story of what the file is, okay? I made provision for you to be able to put into Iris that self-same name. And you can edit it as it goes along. As the file evolves, you can edit that name. So when you look at your list of case files, you'll get that name in here. But if you haven't given it a name yet, you'll still have this little, those of us old enough to remember, fast forward buttons, okay, used to look like this, all right? But I've just abused it in here because I like the way it looks, because it says this is the one you're going to go to. And even if there's no name like we have on this one, you can just click there and it will take you to that one which we gave the case file number X. Okay, so the case file screen looks fairly straightforward until you get to the bottom here. And so suddenly you've got quite a few other buttons down here. Remember the picture I showed you, and I'm going to bring it up again. This one here, with all the different bits like process notes, foster care, court references, and so on. This is how it links out of the case file itself. That's how you get to all those different areas. Okay. One thing to take note of here, foster care application, we're using at this point in time the abbreviation FCA, foster care application. And we are marking the things that's really important for foster care application, but not necessarily important for other files with FCA. So if you see FCA, you're not working with a foster care application. You know, I don't have to necessarily put anything in there. I don't have to click this button at all, okay? But it might be that you find some of the fields very useful. Like, for example, this one here with the housing details, where you can say, what does the housing setup look like at this family's place? It's not necessarily going to be important for every file, but you can put it in, even if it's an FCA specific requirement that resulted in it being available in Iris, doesn't mean that you can't use it if it's not an FCA file you're working with. And so you can use this one, which has got, it has a dining room and a kitchen and a TV room and a granny flat. It doesn't have a laundry or a study or a lounge. And it's got 7 bedrooms, but only 1 bathroom. There's kind of part of your problem. Description of vicinity, you know, a nice area, whatever. So you can describe the place. And for some files, this might be something that's really useful. So we're not going to tell you, sorry, it's not an FCA file you're working with, you can't use it. That would be nonsense. Okay. Under this, because it's an FCA file though, we have got a lot more fields that's got red stars. Okay. And the reason we're putting that in there is with foster care application, we need this information. So if we're really working with foster care information applications, this will be the information we really need. So when you are using it and it's something that's irrelevant to you, you can just put dots in there. Okay.
Dirk,
Yeah.
do I understand you correctly? So, for example, the social worker can complete this document while having the interview with a client, and afterwards a process note is already completed. Do I understand you correctly? For example,
I
the
would
housing
like to say yes. Sorry. For example?
For example, the housing circumstances, the financial position. While you are interviewing the client, you complete this form, and afterwards your process note is already completed. You don't have to go and write another note. So you can just print this and put it on file.
Yes, exactly. You've got different kind of process notes, obviously. But part of the process notes would be of what would be required for certain files would be for foster care applications, for example, you'll have to do the housing details. But you, instead of having to do the a normal process note, which I'll show you in a moment, you can use this, and that in effect becomes a process note telling about the housing details for the case file. So I'm very comfortable with saying yes, as long as it has enough information to warrant that you don't have to put anything else into a process note. So if everything that you would have put in the process note is captured by the screen, then absolutely you don't have to do a process note as well. If that, however, is not true, then you might have to do a small process note that says, I've put the housing details on the file as well, but take note of the following. So just whatever has to be done in, that's not covered in here, make a little additional process note for that. So there it comes down to how do you really use IRIS and what do you use it for when it comes to specific files and so on. So yeah, but I'm still very comfortable from my own side that this will help you with creating process notes and create, essentially this creates a process note, the way I see it. But with the small caveat that there might be a little bit more information that you might want to put in the file when you put the process notes in, and that I've not made provision for, in which case we've got to talk about, do I make provision for it in here, or do I actually leave it and you make a small additional process note to just say, by the way, I've done the housing details for this case file. Does that answer your question, Marianne?
Yes, thank you, Dirk.
Okay, so if we go back to case files, I think so as to keep everything a little bit logical, I'm going to look at that specifically, the process notes next. Okay, and I'm jumping the gun. I'm going to go back to the intake detail and assessments just now, but because we just spoke about process notes, let's quickly have a look at what the process notes look like. Now, for this case file, there is no current process notes. So it says, okay, do you want to go back to case file detail, or do you want to add a process note? Okay. If there are a lot of process notes, then you'll be able to use this button to search, this area to search inside of them to get the process note you're looking for. Okay. let's add a process note just so that you can see how that works. Remember I said the case file internal easy file name? There it pops up right at the top. In this case, I've made it, in some cases I've made it that you can edit it. In some cases I haven't. You guys will have to come back to me and tell me we don't want to ever edit it except if we're in the case file, or we want to edit it everywhere. So that's down to you to decide. Okay, but I'll always make sure that you're able to edit it on the case file. In this case, the fact that it's gray means that it will show information to you, but it won't actually allow you to edit the information. Okay, so a new process note. A process note has a note date. It has a note taker. Again, this I want to automatically populate, so I'll get that as very high on my list of priorities. Then the problem code. This CW06 problem codes is a list from the department, and you can actually see them here. The code number is at the start, the 1 or 11 or whatever, and then the description is what comes next. Okay, when you choose it, it will show it like that on the screen, so you can see it. It also has intervention categories, CW10 intervention categories they called. Okay, here the department made it a little bit more difficult. So you've got categories and codes. Okay, so how it works is you choose the category, you choose the code, and I'm using completely different ones. And the moment you've selected both, it will actually do a complete intervention code, which is the code that the department actually expects to see. Okay. Those lists, the CW06s, CW10s, and so on, we'll make sure that everybody has those available to them, to yourselves when you're working with it. Okay. There's also code 99 called Other. If you look down here, there it is. And if you choose that, then the department also wants to know what are you actually talking about. Why can't you use the other one? So it wants you to put a bit of detail down with that. Okay. Now, most of the time, you'll be using certain combinations here that you'll get to know very quickly. So I'm not going to go into details about that, but it's all on lists that you can look up. Okay. Then the engagement type. This you guys know already. It's in court, at home, at an office, school, telephone, or other. Okay. You know this stuff. All right. Don't have to explain that. The engagement type node. Now, this is specifically for engagement type, where you can say, I saw this guy at court busy with another case, and the guy approached me or whatever. Okay. The purpose of the engagement, the outcome of the engagement, evaluation of the engagement, follow-up of the engagement. Okay. And then specific notes. Now, if you've worked with the department's things before, when it comes to the process notes, then you'll know that this is standard with what the department expects us to keep information for. Okay. Notes is a field that I felt really important to give you so that you have more that you can say about an engagement than just what we've just spoken about. Okay. And then the next follow-up date is a date that you put in. This is really, 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 and I can't, however really will fill the next 5 minutes in your head. That many really is important. Okay, why do I say that? One of the screens that I can't build yet because I need information in Iris. I need a lot of data in Iris. Is a screen that will actually allow you to, at a glance, see what follow-ups is due. Okay, so if you put a follow-up date into your process notes, then it will actually show you you've got to do a follow-up on this within the next 7 working days or 5 working days or whatever we decide to do. I can't start writing that screen because there's not enough information in the system. There's no process notes of any meaning in the system. But that screen that I'm talking about, a dashboard screen, A dashboard screen will be visible at the level of every single social worker. It will be visible for every single branch, for every department, province, and overall for the whole of Rata. Okay, so this is your eagle eye overview, zooming into every social worker screen. And there's a lot of information that I want to put in there that's going to make your lives easier, because it will tell you court order dates. You've got courts in this week, that day. You've got to prepare paperwork for the court before the following dates, etc., etc. So I think that screen will be one of the screens that will make your life so much easier, because it will take a lot of the things that you need to remember right now, or keep in a diary. It will give you information, and we're going to do all kinds of things with that. One of the things I'd like to do is to send you an email reminder for specific really important things, so you also have it in your email, not only in Iris. Anyway, that's it that I want to say about process notes for now. Okay, and you can see here, unfortunately, quite a lot of required fields. We're gonna have to talk about whether we make them required, but the department wants some of them, so we'll have to give that some thought. Okay.
There's a question from Zabi.
Go.
She said, "Can you include time?"
Time. Okay. Oh, so for when she says that, I take it she means that she wants date and time.
Zabi, can you just indicate what was your question?
Yes, I just want to check if maybe you can include time of the engagement with the client. Date and time, yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm not 100% sure how I do time, but that's something that I definitely think we can put in. So when I watch the video again, I'll catch this and I'll say, note to self, time. Okay. Right. Zabi, thank you. We'll look at doing that. I can see definite help for you if we do that. So yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Like I said, I just don't know how to do it yet. Okay. So let's go back to the case file and let's continue the kind of logic where we were with this earlier. Okay. The thing that we were going to look at next, the obvious one, is we've done the screening, we've created the basic case file. Here's the intake. Okay. So what the screen shows you at the moment is it just has the intake details. So you've got your easy case file name here, and then on this side it says people to contact for assessment. Okay. Now I don't want to create 50. So I think on this one, if I look at this one, yeah, I'm sure this is the one that I've done a few. Okay, so when you start populating the contact people for assessment, you'll be able to see and save their details with your intake as well. Okay, so when we do one and we start hitting this to add people, then we create records like this. We can actually see the person's name. I've just put first names, but then their contact details and the relationship to the actual our primary client. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of possible relations, and you can create that for every single person that you have as well. Okay, so jumping back, and I'm sorry I'm jumping like this, but I know that we've got a lot of things that we have to cover in the training, so I don't want to get caught into the nitty-gritty of certain things at this stage, because I'm trying to give you more of an overview. So I do understand I'm going a little bit fast in a lot of ways. That's also why we will make this video available. That's why we're recording, okay? Is that you guys can actually watch it again, stop, pause, get your questions, send those questions to me, and so on, okay? So the recording will be available as soon as we can get it out. It's going to be raw. It's not going to be edited in any fancy way or anything, okay? Just so you know, don't expect me to spend 2 hours or 5 hours or 2 days on editing the video. I don't think that's money, not money, time well spent. Okay, so back to this case file that we're busy working on. Okay, intake. You put your intake date here, your intake employee. Again, it's one of those that I said I want to automate. So we'll be doing that as soon as we can. Okay, presenting problems and client expectations. If any one of you has worked with the department's forms, you'll know exactly where that form field even sits on the form. Okay, preliminary assessment, your CWO6 problem code, your CWO7 risk level. Okay, this is the department's risk levels. Okay, mild risk, high risk, or emergency. Okay, and for those of you who don't know the department's ones, mild is mild or low risk of harm, but functioning in daily life or relationships are impaired. Response required within 3 weeks and a follow-up at least once every 1 to 3 months. That's at mild risk. High is the person is at high risk of harm or danger. Response is required within a week and follow-up at minimum every 2 weeks. And then emergency, immediate danger of currently being harmed. They are currently being harmed. Sorry, response is required within 24 to 48 hours with follow-up twice a week. So if you don't know the department's 3 risk levels, there it is. It's called the CWO7 risk levels. So we'll put this one as mild risk. Okay, so again, you've seen this. Let's call it a concertina. Okay, if you guys know what a concertina is. So there's your different options in your concertina, but it will open every bit separately. Okay, so your intake actions. This stuff will be, for most of you, you've seen this before. It's an emergency action, case consultation with supervisors required, resulted intake. Again, this is possible that it happens. Refer for internal assessment, and then also comprehensive assessment is not required. You know that there are some cases where you don't have to do a comprehensive assessment. Others, you will have to. Always when you're doing a not required, there's probably reasons that you need to give to say why you're not doing a comprehensive assessment. Okay. Then it also has the options to say we're referring it external, and we're already referring it to a departmental program. You see that I've put some codes in the next to those. CW4B and CW4A. Those are 2 different forms, standard referral forms that the department provides us with. My thinking, Marianne, if you can come in on this as well, is that we should provide people with these forms, and those forms, because the people have to take a form to say they are being referred. I think we should just complete that form and then at the branch at this stage in the process, and then hand that to the actual client that's sitting in front of us so that they can take it to whichever external program or departmental or whatever it might be. So my thinking is that we'll provide the CW4A and CW4B forms to the people. Marianne?
Dirk, I would like to know, do all the personnel have these forms? Can you just give us an indication? Are you working with these forms? Just raise your hands. Lisa is dealing with it. None of the other officers.
Yeah. Now that's kind of what I expected to see.
And
So,
Nicolene indicated that she knows about the forms. Okay, here's some more hands that's raised.
okay. So yeah, some of you will know about them. Lots of you won't. It looks like, or you might have been working with the form and just never knew that that was the form. I wouldn't know. So, but I think we'll just make sure that everybody has them. Mariana, you agree?
I agree, Dirk.
Okay. Good. All right. Let's move on from that. Again, when you refer to an other service provider, they want the details of who it is. And then they've also got a referral to other service provider follow-up date. This one, I think, falls through the cracks a lot. It's something that the department apparently wants us to do, is to follow up with other service providers. I don't even know how practical it is. Okay, and for me to say something like that as somebody that doesn't do the work, I don't know how practical it is to make sure that that person has been to that service provider and has communicated with them, and whether that when we contact that service provider, how do we refer to this person that was there so that they actually know who we're talking about? This is a gray area for me, and I don't know how logical it is. I think it's one of those instances where the department, in their wisdom, not doing the work, it sounds like something that's logical to do. And it's logical, but I don't think it's practical. So I personally don't know, but that's something the department wants, is a follow-up date in this field, so it's on the screen. But I'm not going to ever ask you from my side what you're going to do with it. Sorry? Yeah, like I said this time of year. Right, let's move on to the next tab in our accordion and our concertina. The emergency action detail, okay? Obviously, if there are emergencies, then you have to specify what emergencies there are, give a brief description of it, and the action date for when that emergency should be addressed, okay? Pretty straightforward stuff, I believe. Client consent, okay? Of course, this is the world we live in today, where clients' information, etc., is important. There's laws around this and so on. So we've got to get client consent for a lot of things that we want to do. Without going into details around that, this is where we capture that information for that. And then you'll also have to do a client consent signature somewhere, okay? And I think what we'll end up with is we'll print this or something like this, and we'll get them to sign on there. But that's something we'll have to look at from a practical, using Iris in the work environment. What is the most logical way? So I don't want to make a decision for you as to how you're going to get them to sign. We can use just the one page for client consent out of the form that the I think it's called the CW04 form, if I remember correctly, but it doesn't really matter. There's one page on that we could just use and just complete by hand. Absolutely down to how we decide to use it in the office in practical implementation stage, which we're very close to, but we're not quite there yet, okay? Now, two of those, yes, the client consents to the intake action that we've discussed with them. Yes, the client consents to information sharing, and then if they don't consent, what is the reason, okay, for that? And then this one here is the important field. We are going to share the information or take action without consent. Why? The reasons why we're going to do that. That's what we put in this. So you can know the legal stuff. I can't talk about any of that, but you know that legally sometimes you're required to do something even if there's no consent. So that's the kind of thing that we will put into this field. All right, and finally, the supervisor side. You know that with intakes, that's very important. There's your supervisor's name, whether the supervisor supports the intake action, what is the return date for this intake action, comments from the supervisor. I've just realized I've got to make this field. Listen, guys, this is a general thing. One of the fields that they've made available since I started building the system is a note field that allows us to put a lot more information on the screen than what you see in the block. Okay, so it's a field that grows as you put more text into it. I think this is one of the fields that I need to change just the screen field that we're using to show that more information. Why am I talking about it is you will probably find more. I want you to know right now, I can change the field to show more information if you tell me this field on the screen is too small. So please tell me when you find something like that. Tell me anything in actual fact that doesn't work for you or doesn't work like you think it should. Okay. I don't think I know everything. Okay. I'm not that guy. I know most. I don't know most things. All right. I know how much I have to learn. And the thing is, I'm a developer. You are the users. You know how you're going to use this. When you see this is not going to work, talk to me. Because I'm not going to try to convince you that it's going to work. I'm going to talk with you and find out why it's not going to work. And then we talk through what do we do to make it work. Because I can't force you to do anything. I don't even work for Rata. But I can help you find ways to make the things work that we need to work. So please, anytime, feel free. You can have my email address. You're going to have my contact details. You can contact me and say, Dirk, hey, this thing is not working. And then we can take it from there. Okay. So those are the fields on your intake form. And at the end of it all, you just have to put your supervisor intake signature date. Okay. And this has to basically be done by the supervisor. All right. The department again expects signature, physical signature on a form. If they press us on that, we can do that, but the supervisor needs to complete this block. And if that becomes an issue, then we'll manage it. But I'm hoping that we can trust people to have the supervisor do this block. And for the people that are not supervisors to refer this to the supervisor and say, this is my file, can you just look at that and complete the supervisor bits on it, as they would do on paper at this point in time. Okay, so...
Do I understand you correctly? So the person that did the intake have to send this form to the supervisor to refer it and to give her comments.
No,
the supervisor is not going to have access to all the intakes.
No, actually not. The supervisor will be able to see all the intakes, at least all the intakes for the branch or branches, or offices.
Automatisch.
Oh, yeah. So they should have, and it should just be necessary for even by email, for the caseworker to refer it to the supervisor and say, can you just sign off on that file for me, sign off my intake.
Okay, so it will have to be referred by the person that's doing the intake.
Yeah, there's one possibility that we can do is we can put a checkbox on here that says require supervisor sign off, okay, which then can be completed by the caseworker, and then it would on the screen for the supervisor, it will appear as basically a task for them to look at. So that's a possibility that we can also look at doing. But it's not going to do that if I don't change the programming in the background for it. So, but you can.
Hand is raised. Zobi?
I just want to follow up on this, because as a program manager, I've got 8 social workers in Pretoria, 6 social workers who are doing intakes on a daily basis, and they bring it to me, and then after that I allocate to a social worker, and then the allocation is assisting me to follow up on the cases that was the intakes that were presented to me. So is there a space for allocate the social worker here to say I've allocated to a social worker? I don't see it
okay.
here.
It's not on this screen, but let me show you what I thought we were going to do to overcome that. Is when we save this, okay, and now it should save. If we now look, okay, at the over here, yeah, I actually called this open by. Yeah, initially I didn't call this open by. Initially I made this assigned to, and I think I should just change the name. Sorry, the description here, because it's not, the open by is not important in the long run. Okay, yeah, I'm going to just say this is assigned to. So this is a file for this branch, sorry, for this office. It's assigned to this person, okay, which will be, for a start, the social worker that opened the case file, that did the screening and opened the case file. And then you can go back in as the project manager, program manager. I don't know why they keep saying project. Program manager. And you can go and change the name to say, no, that's going to be the person that's going to work on it. Okay. So would that be resolve what you're asking me about?
For me, it's 2 different things. As I've indicated that every day there's a social worker who will open the intake. But at the end, the case manager who will be working on the case. So it will be opened by Zabe, but allocated to Kulufelo so that she can work on it. You can leave that open by, but also maybe at the end give a slot for assigned to.
Okay. I'm telling. I just want to quickly go in a screening here. Okay. Open by is actually your screening employee. Okay. So I think I made a mistake when I called this one year open by. I should have said here allocated to or assigned to. That yes.
Just just an idea that you can think about is maybe if you opened by is the or you can change the name to screened by or intake by, but then the supervisor must allocate the assigned to person.
Okay.
In some cases, it will be automatically in this for a small office, but for a large office like Pretoria, maybe that can be something that isn't done at the intake, but is done by the supervisor, but it will still appear on the on the dashboard screen like this one for the case file. Just something to think about.
I agree with that, yes.
Yeah, No, the reason I'll explain just for a moment. The reason why I think I should change that name for that field. I do understand you want to, for now it's interesting to see what was opened by, but it becomes irrelevant. Okay, and we also have the information on the screening screen. If I make it allocated to on this screen for that exact same field, then I don't have to change anything serious in the way I've worked all the programming to date. If I change this, then it's a pretty serious change. It's going to take me a couple of days to change. So
Dirk,
my gut
can
feeling is, yeah.
do I understand correctly that the screening, the person who screens, which we call the intake, the person that does the intake, and that completes that first screen, that person's name is available on a report somewhere. You will be able to see who did the screening, and then you will be able to see who it's assigned to.
Absolutely.
So when the screening is hobby, so I think that's maybe where the confusion came in. It's not that that information's not going to be there. It will be there of who did the intake, but it will be done from this screen. So the information will be available. Am I right?
Yeah. The information is on the screening, shows exactly who did the screening, and would also be the person that most probably did the intake, because it's very rare for that screening employee not to be the one that does the intake. Okay. So I just want to quickly look at.
Why do we call it screening employee?
Okay.
Is that a term that was given by in the information that was given to you?
Sorry, I'll get back to you in a moment on that one. I just want to quickly see. Okay, we've got, yeah, okay, we've got a room for a separate screening and a separate intake employee already. Okay, so definitely we don't need to have a case file opened by employee as well. Okay, let me show what I've just looked at. Okay, this is an intake, all right? And on the intake, we've got the intake employee and office, okay? On the screening, we have the screening employee and the screening office. So the case file is not necessarily opened by this person. Yeah, it's this is actually going to be the same name as a screening employee. Okay, at this point in time. So I personally feel we've got this already have record of who did the screening, and we have record of who did the intake. I think this field here must be called assigned to employee. Because it's
that will be completed by the program manager.
Yeah, and the program manager assigns the file, then does the application, chooses the name, selects the name to put in that field. Does that make sense, guys?
That makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think if you can change to assign to, yes.
Okay, right. We'll do that. Okay.
There's another question. Can a notification be sent to the program manager when there is an intake?
Yes, it's something that I would like to do. So it's something that's on my very, very long to-do list, is to do that, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, just programming as we go. that's what I need to do to make that work. So now you see how the programming works. Now I can't see the publish button from there. Okay, right, job done. So that will now be fixed on this screen in about 30 seconds. Okay. So guys, we've looked at the screening detail. We've looked at the intake detail. We've looked at the process notes, okay? And we've done all of that in about an hour. Okay, we've allocated an hour and a half for this, if I remember correctly, Marianne.
That's correct.
Okay, so I want to know, does everybody want to just quickly stand up at your computer, just stretch your legs, take 5 deep breaths, be ready to continue? If that's okay, let's see if this is now showing assigned to. Yes. All right. So now you can say, right, I'm assigning this one to there. All right. A lot of the things that I've said, guys, is already things when it comes to the automation. There's some things I can't automate if there's not enough data in the system, because I can't be sure the way I've automated it will work the way we need it to work. Okay, so please bear that in mind when it comes to some of the automation tasks. Those things are on my list. It's something I know what to do, how to do, but I've not been able to do them yet because it doesn't make sense to try and do it. But I don't have data and I can't test if it actually works. Okay. What I need to know, I need to look at finally, I think for today, is the assessment. Okay. So again, linking directly out of the case file itself, we have a list of assessments. And with the new case file, we'll have to start assessment like this. So assessment has an assessment date, an assessment employee, and an assessment office. Again, automating from that, I'll try to populate these fields. Then so again, you can see it's pretty straightforward. The assessment findings would then be, what's the client's situation, what's their strengths and problem-solving skills, social relations, daily life, psychological issues, stress, emotional, behavior problems, education, safety and security. You guys know all this stuff. You know a lot more. You know what's required of you when filling in these screens, okay? Food, nutrition, economic issues, basic needs, legal needs, okay? Then assessment summary, where you go, this is the problems, these are the strengths that the people have. Then it says list all the relevant CW06 codes for this case file, okay? With most case files, there's going to be a main CW06 code, and for a heck of a lot of them, there's going to be additional or other relevant CW06 codes. Finally, describe the risk level, and you can choose the risk level. Again, you remember the 3 that we spoke about earlier. But you can also describe the risk level to them, okay? Again, this is the kind of field I was talking about where you can put more information in, okay? Show you what I mean, okay? This field, it's not so easy to do, okay? Get an error message even because it doesn't allow me. So, no, it doesn't like that either. So, it's one of those fields where I might need to change this physical field that you type the data in to one of these fields that allow you to put a lot of data in. So I've gone through a lot of the screens and fixed and changed that, but not all of them yet, okay? So remember what I said, let me know if there's any ones that you find. I've seen this one now and I think I'll change this one. Okay, with this, we'll just put commas in between, so that's not going to be a problem. And then the plan of action, you know, again, what actually they expect you to put in these. but there's your overall goal, the client's view of it, okay, and then the plan of action evaluation due date. So you can just choose again from your date picker. And then contracting. Contracting is the one thing for those of you who've not worked with the department fields. Contracting is your bit where you do your client consent, and if there's no consent, the reasons. And again, that field that we had earlier, which says if there is going to be sharing of information or action taken without the consent, what is the reasons we're going to do it? Okay, and if the field name like this does not make sense to you, let's talk about what the field name should be so it makes sense and you understand it. Okay, this the field name here comes from the department's forms. So it might make sense to you, hopefully it will, but perhaps we need to change it, elaborate, and we can. That's not a problem to do that. And again, then finally with the assessment, we put the supervisor's name and so on. Yeah, and it specifically, very important, the supervisor supports the intake action that we've decided upon. Okay, and then again, there's the assessment action, return date, and the signature date for the supervisor. That's on there. All right. So I've gone through the assessment very quickly because the assessments, I think, is something that you've done a heck of a lot more about. You know a lot more about it than me. So I'm not going to try and explain assessments to you. So that's kind of where I wanted to be at the end of today, and we're a bit early. So I still think we should call the training at this stage, but I think it's now time for questions. Okay. And I think we should really try to answer any questions about anything related to IRIS. Okay. Because I think there's probably a lot of questions that you guys have that I've not even, I couldn't even imagine that would be a question. So I'm just looking in the chat at the moment. I don't see any questions that we've not addressed. So
Dirk, Nicolien, se hand is op.
Ekskuus, ek het dit gemis. Ja, Nicolien, kan ons haar unmute? Ja, sy is unmute.
Hi, Dirk. I just want to know what is expected from us, because we have now our pile of brown files, the hard copies, and now we have IRIS. Do you expect from us to put in all the information of our current files onto IRIS, or are we going to start with the new intakes and take it from there? If you can just give me a bit of clarity regarding the process and the expectations, please.
Okay, we actually discussed this on Monday, so I'm going to defer the answer or refer the answer to Marianne, Charmaine, and
Okay, I'll quickly give feedback on this because Marianne is struggling with the internet at this point. Thank you for that question, Nicolene. It is a very good question because we did discuss this quite a bit on Monday. So, and Anel, please come in here because I might not, ek kan myself dalk nie so goed uitdruk nie. Okay. We decided that the implementation date for start of use of IRIS is from 1 of July. Okay. And one of the reasons why we're giving a little bit of a gap is because we're going to have another training session before then as well with the personnel, specifically who could not attend today. Okay, so we just need to get that in line. So that in effect will mean that from on 1 July, you start using this as we discussed today with Dirk here. The thing is, at the end of this year, we are going to need the data for the whole year because our years work from 1 April to end of March of every year. That means that in between this, officers will be expected to do the backlog, but just to capture the main data. You don't have to go back and load the files for the backlog. You just suggest that we have a databasis for that from 1 April to end of June, for instance. July onwards, when we start implement this on an official basis, then you start using this. So you don't have to go back and make when you do the backlog and capture the data on the register, it doesn't have to be or everything with regards to the case files per se, just the case information so that we have that data. At the end of February of next year, we will then, for instance, say that the backlog must have been done on the register. With other words, then all officers must be on the same place or level in terms of from 1 April to end of February, so we can go through to March. Anel, help my gou hier. Ek het duidelik genoeg gestel. Ek is net bang ek het dit dalk nie duidelik genoeg gestel nie.
Charmaine, I think you were clear on that. I just want to confirm with Dirk, when will we be able to give everyone their login details? Because I would see as soon as I have login details, I can start using it. So everybody doesn't have to wait until the 1st of July, but I would suggest the sooner people start using it, the sooner we can iron out questions. But from the 1st of July, everybody must use it.
Okay,
so
thank
all new files from the 1st of July, but as soon as someone has their login details, they can start using it. Am I right, Dirk?
100% right. I've just put my email for IRIS support in the chat. So it's iris-support@rata.org.za. Okay. And I want you all to, and this is really important, copy that and drop me an email before you close your computer today. Okay. Preferably do it in the next 30 seconds. Okay. Just drop me an email. I will then know that you were part of this training session because I don't know everybody's details and so on. Or not, either you were part of it. Yeah, I will know you were part of this training session. So I can then immediately create your login and details and send it to you. I expect 1 or 2 emails from me with the login details and how to get into IRIS. Okay, so it's really important. Do that so I can get you into IRIS as soon as I can.
Okay, thank you for that, Dirk. I think there's a hand from Nalene. But before we go to Nalene's hand, I also just want to add to what Anel also said pertaining to also questions. After we've done a second training, for especially for the secretaries who could not attend and some of the personnel who were not available for today, we are going to have a 2-weekly session. We're going to call it another drumbeat. It's just where we can come together and we will say, okay, it's now, let's say, the second week in July or whatever. How far are everybody? Who's struggling? What are you struggling with? Do you need a little bit more support? What challenges do you have? It's just to make sure that when we implement IRIS, that we can address the irritations. Ek weet nie hoe dit noem nie, die goed wat gaan oppop. Once you start using it and you feel, oh, but this is not working for me, I don't understand this, so that we can address that. Okay, so this is what we're going to do there then. Nolene, your hand is also raised.
Oh, thank you, Charmaine. Hello, everybody. I'm the Secretary of Klerksdorp. I don't know if my question would be relevant, but I'm going to give it a shot. some time ago, not sure when, Anel sent us all a list that we had when we open a new file, our normal file, brown files, that we have to put, like, for example, for Clarksdorp, KLE, and then, of course, the number that we allocate to the case. Is that going to be applicable to Iris? And it might not be, I don't know if it's the right platform or.
Okay. I can come in and tell you, Nalene, I've made provision for it here in Iris. But in Iris, we actually have a case file number that's kind of hidden in the background. Okay. So there is a single case file it's a logical key, but that's just a number. Okay, it's an integer, so it's got no decimal digits. But that's all. That's a case file that Iris has. So I've made provision for it here, so we can use it, and it's one of the things that's a field that you have to put in. All right.
Yes.
We might at some stage change our minds about it, but I think for now, the best way is you definitely still have your brown paper file that you're going to use. Okay, Iris is not at this stage replacing your brown paper file, so that same number should be on both, so as to allow you to pick up the right file in Iris for the paper file if you want to check something between the two.
Okay, thank you, Dirk. Thank you very much.
Dirk, there's a question in the chat from Zabi. She asks, let me just quickly go back there. There are two questions. I'm going to give the first one from Annette. Can the notification be sent to the supervisor when there is an intake? Is it something, if it's not, is it something that maybe we can consider?
Yeah,
I think the reason why she's asking, not supervisors don't sit at all the offices on a daily basis. So just to make it maybe easier, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. I think I answered the question, but doesn't matter. Definitely, something that's on my list to do is to put on the dashboard for the project managers, no, program managers. I always get it wrong. Program managers on each and every one's dashboard should be a list of all the opened case files where the intake was done, and they need to sign it off. Same with assessments that they have to sign off. So it's two very important areas on the dashboards for the program managers. I got it right this time. Okay.
Okay, no problem. Dirk, and then Zabi also asked a question. Is Iris for statistical purposes, or can it be printed and put in the files?
The idea is that it should definitely be printed and put in the files where it's relevant. Sometimes it might not be relevant to print it and put it in the files, but that question I can't answer, because when it comes to the actual practical use of Iris and what the caseworkers do, there's a lot of things like when you go into the court, you only have the case file in front of you. Sometimes, I believe in South Africa, you're not allowed to take a laptop in. I might be wrong. I don't know. So there's definitely gonna be functionality to print. Has to be.
Dirk, if I may add to that, when we get to the point where everything is up to date, as Charmaine explained earlier, then we can use Iris to actually auto-complete a lot of the forms that we have to send to DSD and so forth. So when everything's working well, then it will actually start making to make your work easier, so that you have your monthly stats forms and so on will be able to be printed from Iris, and you don't have to fill it in by hand. But then we need to get to this place where everything is up to date.
Agree.
Yes, unfortunately, we'll have to have hard copies on the file for case audits by DSD and by head office and by the program manager.
Anel's hand is also raised.
For the future, and maybe, well, let me ask it like this: will I be able to access and work on Iris on my phone or on a tablet?
Already today, yes.
Thank you.
Daar teken Pieter op my skerm.
Okay, there is Lisa's hand as well. Dirk, Lisa.
How much data will, not data, space, will this take on a phone?
Okay, the way Iris is written is actually as a web application, okay? So it works like a web page. And when it comes to how much space a web page takes, it is directly related to the number of images and videos that you actually put on the screen, okay? Now, there is in the relevant areas, things that I haven't shown you yet, there's going to be a provision for uploading files into your case file. Okay, I've run into a couple of small problems with doing it, which I'm just busy resolving those. But we've tested it before, and it works very well. And you can actually just create files and put them into Iris. Okay, but the way Iris works, because it's a web application, it only loads the text information that you need onto your screen or your device, onto your computer, your device, your tablet at any stage. It does not load everything. It does not load all the images. I've stress tested it, and I found it to be pretty quick. Okay, but there is sometimes a small delay between you asking for information and it appearing on the screen, like about 2 seconds. Okay, but that's the worst I've seen to date. So when it comes to the question, more I think the question is, will this make my phone very slow? Can my old phone work with it? I've still got to come across a phone that can't handle this, because I've written it in such a way that I'm not trying to stress test your phone. Okay, this is actually, put it like this: if you go and shop and take a lot on your phone, you are doing pretty much the same thing that you're doing on Iris, with one exception. There's not all the images that Take a Lot also wants to put on your phone for you at the same time. So if you're able to Take a Lot, you'll be able to Iris. I hope that answers that.
Any other questions?
Dirk, I think also we must know that Iris is not the app on your phone. You use your phone's internet browser to access Iris.
Yeah,
so you don't have to download anything. You just go to your Chrome or your whatever internet browser your phone uses. So it will use some data, but because the pictures are not automatically loaded, the images, it will be data friendly.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty data friendly until you start uploading and downloading big files. So I would just suggest, don't do that on your phone when you're at the court. Do that when you're back in the office or wherever you've got low cost internet.
Lisa, is that the old hand? Lisa?
Okay.
I don't see
Any other questions? Dirk, I don't see any other hands.
Neither do I. I think we're done for now, for today. Take one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thanks for all the questions after. I think you covered all the things that I was hoping that you'd cover in that, and all the things I missed. So yeah, quite happy from my side. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very
Dirk.
much, Dirk. From my side as well, I'm really excited. I think Iris is going to help us a lot and make our life much easier. Thank you again.